Welcome in live from Super Bowl 56 Radio Row in sunny, scenic Los Angeles, California. So happy to have you guys here with me as we are broadcasting live for the next 3 days. Myself, 3HL, we're all out here for the party that is going to culminate in the big game at the end of the week. Lucas Panzica, he's back in Network Control Studios in Nashville. He's making everything happen, and we are going to have a lot of fun over the course of the next 3 days. We'd welcome your participation as well. 615-737-1045. That's the number. 615-737-1045. You can jump in on the conversation, and there's going to be a lot of conversations had based on the news yesterday of what happened with the Tennessee Titans. We got a press release dropped in the middle of our emails. I was walking down the stairs of my home. I was getting ready to tape the podcast with Greg Cosell, which you'll hear a little bit of later on because we'll break down Super Bowl 56 between the Bengals and the Rams with Greg momentarily, but was heading downstairs, and all of a sudden we get an email drop. John Robinson and Mike Vrabel both have their contracts extended for an undetermined, we don't get a time frame on this, but at this point, both the general manager and the head coach of the local professional football team getting their contracts extended yesterday. A couple of other staff moves, as you heard in Lucas Panzica's update, making the addition of Tim Kelly as passing game coordinator official. You got Bobby King as well, another Texans cast-off, joining the Tennessee Texans at this point under Mike Vrabel. But a lot of good stuff. And from Amy Adams Strunk, this statement: I'm proud to say that John and Mike will be leading our football team for years to come. And I add parenthetically, that's the only kind of time frame that they give us. Remember that NFL clubs don't have to make coaches and general managers' contracts public. But, good to know that Mike and John are under contract for, quote, years to come. I have seen the team improve on a yearly basis under their direction, and I know their singular goal is to deliver a championship for our fans. Now, it goes on, and we'll get into, basically the turnaround that John and Mike have overseen with this particular organization. But those words, I think that second sentence kind of hits a little harder for Titans fans this week, right? I have seen the team improve on a yearly basis under their direction, and I know their singular goal is to deliver a championship for Titans fans. Well, I feel like a lot of people probably are thinking that this should have been the championship game that this year's team participated in. This is the whole conversation around this year's Titans squad, and I think it kind of peels the scab off the wound that's been trying to heal for the better part of a month now since Cincinnati came into Nissan Stadium and took your stuff in a way that was clear and obvious to everybody how that game was given away. And basically the question, the dialogue that I want to have with you guys today is this: how far away are John Robinson and Mike Vrabel from leading the Tennessee Titans to a Super Bowl championship? 615-737-1045. You can jump in and react to the news. I know people have been doing that all morning long. Honestly, Lucas, I almost didn't make our show time today because Pacific time is completely banging me this week. 8 a.m. start time for me out here. I almost slept through it. God bless Kirby, Allen Kirby, and Will Bowling for making sure that I got on the air in due fashion because I was scared that I was not going to make the radio show today. But we found it, and we are in the midst of it's a rather sedated Radio Row, if I'm being honest with you. I expected a lot more obesity. I expected a lot more butt crack, to be honest with you, given what I know of our profession. But I've been disappointed by all three so far. But it's early. I think we have time to spice things up a little bit. Glad we were able to make it on the air. What are you making faces at me for? What did I do?
Obesity and butt cracks, the radio industry.
I mean, is that not an adequate description of what it is that we do for a living? I feel like we as an industry lead the league in obesity and butt cracks, but there will be time to discuss that at a later date. But just how far has the Tennessee Titans franchise come since John took over in 2016. Mike Vrabel hired in 2018, and kind of the growth that you have seen from this franchise from irrelevancy, right? I mean, utter irrelevancy at the time that I moved here in 2015, fresh out of college, trying to find a job that was going to not only help me pay my rent at the time, but also keep me alive, sustain me. And sports is not the industry to start out in if that's the kind of things that you're looking for, but we've since made it. Very happy about all that. But since then, the Titans have really come so far, but the mountaintop is what you're trying to achieve. And it felt this year like this was their best opportunity to take advantage of that. But you can't gloss over all the things that have happened getting to this point where the expectation for a franchise that was, lost in the purgatory of top 5, top 10, and in certain points the first overall pick, just mired in mediocrity, and how much better a place this thing is in 6 years removed from John Robinson being hired. They won, how many of you remember in the audience the teams that won a total of 5 games in 2 seasons combined? There have only been 2 teams in the NFL at this point that have produced a winning record in each of the past 6 seasons. It's the Kansas City Chiefs and your football team. To come from the basement of the NFL where, for all of the people complaining about lack of respect and lack of attention and why does nobody talk about the Titans and on and on and on it goes, there was no reason to until recent history. And how much the development and growth where championships are the expectation now, how far along this has come. You've got back-to-back division titles for the first time in franchise history since the Houston Oilers at the beginning, 1960 to 1962. You got a trip to the conference title game in 2019 for the first time since the early 2000s. It's a roster transformed. It's a fan base that's reinvigorated. And while players deserve the vast majority of the credit, obviously the players are the people who participate in the games, who ultimately decide how a game is won or lost, even though we've discussed the merits of coaching and how much good coaching or bad coaching can impact your results. These 2 guys and their staffs under them over the course of the past 6 years in the case of John and Mike Vrabel since 2018, it has come such a long way. But how far away are they from a Super Bowl championship? I want to talk about it with you guys. 615-737-1045. We're going to have a bunch of great guests on tap here from Radio Row. But Lucas, does it stress you out that we decided not to book in advance the show, that we're kind of playing fast and loose with it this week? This is very, very uncharacteristic for us. I feel like we're super structured when it comes to these kind of things. Are you prepared for the roller coaster that is sad Radio Row?
I am prepared for the roller coaster because, A, I'm not the one running around in L.A. chasing people down, so it's a little bit of a load off my back, and I like to live on the edge a little bit, so let's have some fun.
Oh, so you're just hanging me out to dry at my expense and then watching it burn from the studio.
Yeah, I'm a thrill seeker. I don't know who's going to be on the show tomorrow. It's crazy.
Let's get nuts. We know for sure that Bridget Condon of the NFL Network is going to join us at the table, and we'll talk a little Rams and Bengals then. Also, we have to talk about this Jeff Fisher picture at some point for his headshots for the Michigan Panthers of the USFL.
Go Panthers.
He looks tremendous, by the way. But we are going to have to discuss this at some point. A reminder that our Radio Row coverage, both myself and 3HL for the next 3 days, we are on the road in Los Angeles thanks to Ferguson HVAC, Two Rivers Ford, and A Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. You can tune in every day. We're going to have all kinds of fantastic guests out here at the Convention Center in L.A. Exclusive interviews. You're not going to get it anywhere else. Our Radio Row coverage brought to you by Ferguson HVAC. Quality products, exceptional service. Two Rivers Ford, powered by Ford, driven by people. And A Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa, Nashville's only full-service salon, day spa, and gift boutique located in Cool Springs. When we come back, we're going to discuss how far away the Tennessee Titans are from participating in a game like this and whether John Robinson and Mike Vrabel are the best people equipped to get there. That's on the other side, live from Radio Row. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
You've got a job to do, and we're here to make sure you get it done right. When you work with Ferguson HVAC, we'll make sure you get the equipment, parts, and supplies you need quickly. That way you can get in, get stocked, and get back to the work that really matters.
Zone. Buck Reising here with you until 1 o'clock Central. Kirby's got me rattled out here. I'm out here with Kirby, Alan Kirby. Will Bowling is making everything stay on the air. Radio Row is disorienting. It's sensory overload, even though things have not quite filled up yet. This is my rookie experience, and Kirby's like calling out, like regulars, like you would see in a bar together and stuff. Like, I'm familiar with that woman's work. She's one of the handlers, and there's all kind. I'm not going to get us canceled here today, but this is going to be a unique experience out here in L.A. 615-737-1045 is the number. We're reacting to the news from yesterday afternoon that both John Robinson and Titans head coach Mike Vrabel received contract extensions, an undetermined period of time. At this point, we will see if there are contract details that are able to be leaked out in the coming days and hours and things of that nature. But basically the question that I've asked you is this: how far away are these two from guiding the Tennessee Titans to a game like this? To the point where, I think most of our expectations, even me, who is, I think, a noted cynic, I'm probably the most skeptical of any of us as far as the on-air personalities are concerned. Like, I think there's a lot of this stuff when you look at it and say, okay, there's a lot of reasons why the Tennessee Titans should or should not be in games like this, but still going through the postseason and going through the regular season and seeing how they've tried to, how they did try and successfully survived a regular season unlike any that we have seen in NFL history, and then to fall so short in the biggest moment of their season en route to trying to get to a Super Bowl, to host the AFC Championship game, where the Cincinnati Bengals, the team that will be playing in this game on behalf of the AFC come Sunday, where you had probably the best shot at them. So how far away are Mike Vrabel and John Robinson from guiding this team to a Super Bowl championship? 615-737-1045. I'll give you my opinion here in just a second, but we'll go to the phones for the first time today. We got Jalen in Memphis who wants to chime in. Good morning, Jalen. How are we?
I'm good. How are you doing this morning?
I'm well, thank you.
I just want to say this. J-Rob, Brave, they deserve that contract extension. They've changed the culture in Tennessee. I've been a Titans fan for as long as I remember. I'm 25 years old. And there was a long stretch where we were just losing. And now we're become a winning team. Everybody expects us to win. I will say this: we did have our best chance of winning the Super Bowl this year. We came short. Yeah, I'm accepting it now. But I do want to say this. One of our problems is we're starting to become a Cowboys type of fan base, it seems like to me, because now everybody wants to go get Aaron Rodgers. And I saw somebody on Twitter yesterday say, "Oh, we should go get Kyler Murray because he doesn't want to be in Arizona." Not happening. We shouldn't do that. And then there's also the tickle monster thing. I've been wanting to say this for a long time. I've been listening to your show for about a month now, and I've been wanting to say that I didn't like the tickle monster thing at all. And that kind of let me know that we weren't going to get to we weren't going to get far as a fan base. So
no,
that might
like
give you some drawback as a Titans fan. I did not like that at all. I wasn't a fan of that.
Unbelievable. Thanks for the call, Jalen. 615-737-1045. He brings up a Cowboys-type fan base around the Tennessee Titans. Now, I think there's some elements of that. Like, so what does that mean, right? The Cowboys fans have unrealistic expectations about their football team, it seems, into perpetuity. They have not mattered in a long, long time of any real consequence, right? They haven't done any real, true winning. There hasn't been postseason success the way that there should have been, commensurate with the talent that they've had and with the rosters that they've been able to construct, because they do have some hugely talented players. But when you get these moments, and again, this was if you're talking about the Cowboys this year, the way that they Reggie Miller the choking sign, right, against the 49ers in those final moments, the way that Mike McCarthy botched that thing. I don't know that it's an apt comparison. But when you bring up the fan base, Lucas and I were talking about this morning on our pre-show call, and you brought up something, Lucas, that I thought was pretty interesting in the way that you articulated how people were reacting to the John Robinson, Mike Vrabel extension, because you did what you absolutely should not do. You went scrolling through the replies on things of that nature when you know it's going to be toxic. And I've told you a million times that Twitter's not real life. What did you discover in the mentions?
Yeah, and it's not to give voice to the vocal minority, right? Because most people don't feel this way. But there is that miserable faction of Titans fans out there that see that and go to, oh, great, another year of, or another X amount of years of second round, first round playoff exits. So I don't understand living in that type of misery. And if you do, then you probably have only been a Titans fan for the last 4 or 5 years. Because as Jalen said, about 7 years ago, irrelevant that's not even a good enough word to describe the state that this franchise was in 2014, 2015. It was whatever rung below irrelevant is in the NFL.
Sure. I mean, you're bottom feeder, right? I think that's an accurate description. I don't want to sound like I'm twisting the knife or nothing like that, but in all seriousness, it did feel like there were, I used to get so criticized when I first started working down here, because I would get on the air or get on the platform that I had at the time and was just like, this is a miserable football team to watch. Even when they started winning with that style of football, even that has changed so drastically. Even if you know that there's going to be a running game, a strong running game, a focus on the running game, and the situation for, you're going to play good defense. This is something that's been the kind of brand of Titans football since Jeff Fisher. You understood what things were going to happen in that way, but this is a complete and total 180. I'm getting people tweeting us at Buck Reising on Twitter, V-Love, who's got a picture of him in the stands for a 3-win football team in the rain with a flask. These people out there listening to this understand the depths. And how much further it's come, it's a night and day difference.
It wasn't even hilarious, chaotic, dysfunctional dumpster fire, right? Jags fans are going through something miserable right now. This is a miserable period, but it's still a roller coaster, right? I mean, they're experiencing a very wide range of emotions over the last couple of years, and the rest of the league is pointing and laughing, right? The Titans weren't even in a spot where anybody else would point and laugh because nobody cared. It was that level of irrelevance. It was just bad all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, bad to the core, really. You see those pictures, those screenshots of the picture when Ken Wisenhunt was hired, and it's Tommy Smith next to Ken Wisenhunt and Rustin Webster as the general manager, and then flash forward to 4 or 5, 6 years later, John Robinson, Amy Adams-Strunk, and Mike Vrabel as the brain trust for this franchise, and just how much further it's gone. From my standpoint, it's tough to kind of prognosticate these kind of things. And anytime you do, you start to cite stuff like DVOA, and people lose their minds because that's how the Titans get labeled as the worst 1 seed in NFL history and things like that. And then the Twitter machine starts to swirl. With that being said, I kind of look at this and think, I don't know how to kind of accurately tell you whether or not John Robinson and Mike Vrabel are going to be able to win a Super Bowl together, right? There's plenty of deserving, competent, high-level general managers, players, quarterbacks, coaches that have not been able to achieve at that level. It's why Tom Brady is such a shooting star, such an incredible anomaly among the rest of it, because he's been to 10 of them and won 7. It just doesn't happen that way. Now, are you in the best position humanly possible? I heard Jim Wyatt. I can't remember if he was on 3HL yesterday or if he was with Blaine and Mickey or J. Martin Ramon. Apologies, but I know Jim Wyatt was on our airwaves yesterday saying that and understanding that Jimmy's a team employee, right? Jimmy's not ever going to come out and tear Mike and John down. But Wyatt, who has covered this team from the jump, who has a more grounded in reality understanding of the highs and lows, the peaks and valleys of the Tennessee Titans, yesterday was saying he thinks that Mike Vrabel is the best coach that the Tennessee Titans have ever had. And it's tough to dispute. I mean, you look at the way and the rate that Mike has won since he's got here, understanding that John is a big part of that. Roster construction matters so much. Vrabel, he's matched the franchise record for wins over the first 4 seasons with a team. It's him and Jack Pardee, tied with 43 wins. Vrabel and Pardee, this is from the email release that Titans PR sent us out, they're the only coaches in team history to produce winning seasons in each of their first 4 seasons. He's got an over 600 career winning percentage. It's among the highest in franchise history. In fact, it is the highest in franchise history. He's 43-27, including the postseason. And he's made the postseason 3 of the 4 seasons that he's been here. So if you want me to tell you that Mike Vrabel and John Robinson are guaranteed to win a Super Bowl together, I'm not going to be able to do that. But what I can tell you is that you're in the best possible position with these two as your brain trust and with ownership who understands the direction that they're heading in and is going to provide them with the finances to do stuff like hire a passing game coordinator. Because you could look at a lot of different franchises around the league where ownership would say, well, you have an offensive coordinator. Why do you need an additional staff member? Why isn't that good enough? Hire the right guy for the job. And maybe that makes sense on a base level, but that's not the way that things work in today's NFL. Of course it's not. You need that kind of support, both economically and basically from a trust standpoint, for somebody to say, yeah, go out and spend my money on a passing game coordinator, a former NFL OC that we know is going to help take our quarterback to the level that he needs to be to legitimately compete and exceed the place that we have been so as not to plateau. Because you can win all the regular season football games you want and it not matter. Once you get into the postseason, and this is the thing that they have to prove to us, right? 2019 seems to be the exception to the rule because you've had 2 home playoff games so far, and you've botched both of them in the last 2 years. How can you kind of get back to that level or make that the standard where at least a playoff win each season is the expectation? That's the expectation right now. How can you achieve your ultimate goal and get over the hump and get into the Super Bowl? Because if you get into this game, you at least have a chance. 615-737-1045. You can jump in. We're live from Super Bowl Radio Row. Chief is in Hendersonville up next on the Zone. What's up, Chief? Chief, you got me?
Yes, I got you, my friend. Is it good coffee?
Yes, go ahead.
Got you? Okay, hey, all this wine care. First of all, I'm a founding member. Been there from day one. Vanderbilt, missed a couple of games. The Titans, everything they brought to Nashville, got to put that to side. That's just unbelievable great. Trust me, I want a Super Bowl. I want it bad.
Sure.
Broke my heart. Every game that we would blow in the playoffs, yes, it breaks my heart. But think back, Bum Phillips, he wrapped it up best. He sat there when the Oilers were having the trouble. I think it's Pittsburgh, kept knocking them out. First statement was something to the effect of, we deserve to be, we're at the door. Second, year, whatever, last year we knocked on the door. Next, blankety door down. That's where we got to be. We're going to do it. John and Mike and Miss Strong, all them, they put a package together that if you're a real fan, you can't be proud of that. Come on. Yes, I want a Super Bowl. Yes, I want to see a playoff victory at home. But my God, man, look at what this franchise has done for us. Think how many times Steve McNair, Eddie George, Blaine Bishop, and all the great things they did in the past. Now, go to this last year. Look at the excitement. Look at what Tannehill done. Look at what Henry. Look at Jones and the line. Look at all this stuff. And to have any doubt that we are not going to win a Super Bowl, nah, we're going to get one. When it's going to happen, I don't know. But I think the combination of what we've got and the coach and the general manager and the owner, yeah, we're going to win it. We're going to knock that darn door down, no doubt.
Thanks for the call, Chief. 615-737-1045. You can jump in on the conversation live from Radio Row. So I guess what's it going to take, right? What's it going to take for this team to be able to get to this final week of the regular season, to return to this game because they have made an appearance in the Super Bowl, in fact, against a Rams team. But it seems because we've talked about this over the course of the last couple of weeks, right? How big a difference is there between them and the Bengals? And the reality of the situation is there's not that big of a gulf. It's just you had the thing that you absolutely cannot have when it comes to turnovers. It cannot go down that way. It's a situation for the Tennessee Titans where we've talked about how the Bengals have made it to this point, understanding that they have a franchise quarterback in place who's going to be able to elevate them. They made the decision to go through and to be able to get the skill position players that they needed to get him over the top. Even though Joe Burrow is running for his life, he's under duress constantly in these games, both against the Titans, the Chiefs, and certainly that will be the case against Von Miller, Leonard Floyd, Aaron Donald, so on the list goes. There's so many different elements of this that you look at it and you say, okay, so what's been the difference between the Bengals and the Chiefs, or the Bengals and the Titans right now? And the answer just, it turns out, is the turnovers. They were not good enough offensively to outright beat you. Now, they were good enough if you gave them the opportunity to, plenty good enough if you gave them the opportunity to capitalize on those turnovers. Joe Burrow, despite getting sacked what should have counted for 11, which would have been an NFL playoff record in a single game. 9 tied the record. Jeff Simmons, Danico Autry, Bud Dupree, Harold Landry. Outside of franchise quarterback talent, the ability to get pressure with 4, we know this. It's the most important thing in the sport. And they had it. They had one of the best groups in football. I'm not saying that that's going to completely go away next year, but it's so hard to reproduce that kind of a special unit, that kind of a team, that kind of juice, that kind of energy, where everything, after a year where your defense was an outright, unmitigated, unholy disaster, to come together and do that kind of thing to some of the best quarterbacks in the sport. Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, even though we've got one over on you in a playoff game. Matt Stafford, they came to L.A. in November on Sunday Night Football, and they beat the holy hell out of the Rams. They had the thing to do that would give them the ability to beat these football teams. So this season, because I know we asked Mike Vrabel about it at the end of the year, and his response was, well, we're really far away right now because we're sitting at home. And I get why Mike is going to feel a certain kind of way about that situation. Of course, that it makes all the sense in the world that you have to only focus on what's in front of you, and you can't dwell too much on what's in the past as a football coach. It's not productive, right? Same reason that you don't second guess and things of that nature. Like, it's all got to be on what's ahead. But from the standpoint of how far away were they from the Bengals this season, I mean, in reality, they're not an objectively worse football team than the Bengals, even though they lost head-to-head. They're not an objectively better team than the Bengals because the Bengals capitalized on the mistakes that the Titans allowed them to make. The situation for this, I think, is obvious to everybody. Titans had a fantastic chance to be in this game this year. And no matter how many times or how many different ways you try to run this back, there has to be a way to improve, to evolve. And that is going to come with this offense, however they choose to retool it, and whatever this reinvigorated passing game looks like with the combination of Todd Downing, Tim Kelly on his staff, and the Tennessee Titans trying to move in the direction of just modern football. Because at a certain point, you got to keep up with the rest of the herd. And they're in this top tier with the Chiefs and the Bills and the Bengals, who seem to be on this trajectory, even though they might have gotten here a little earlier than anybody expected. This is a team with a franchise quarterback. They're only going to improve. Titans are in that conversation, but they need to not just be the stepchild of the Power Four in the AFC. And that's what it feels like the rest of the league views them as until they can prove otherwise. 615-737-1045. You can jump in on the conversation. We'll get more of your phone calls coming up next. We got some great guests ahead for you live from Radio Row here in Los Angeles. I'm Buck Reising. This is 1045 The Zone. Live from Radio Row. I'm getting some lip back there in the studio. I don't know if I appreciate it. I'm working under different circumstances here. What did you just come on my headset and say? Lucas Panzica's back in the studio.
Just lounging around during the break, not like you're coming back on the air or anything. Got some music playing for however long it's playing. LA Woman by the Doors, though, giving the Doors some more airtime, so I'm all right with that.
Okay, thank you. Got a show to do, he says to me, as Alan Kirby is motioning frantically to get me to put my headset on. Listen, like I said, it's disorienting out here. We're expecting to have former NFL wide receiver Torrey Smith join us at our table here in just a few moments. I wonder if he brought his Super Bowl. He won a Super Bowl with the Ravens. I wonder if he's rocking his rings here on Radio Row. I'd be curious to find out, and we'll catch up with Torrey later in the program. But in the meantime, we've been talking about John Robinson and Mike Vrabel, how far away they are from a Super Bowl. 615-737-1045. You can jump in if you like. We have on the line Bob in Nashville who wants to chime in on Mike Vrabel. Bob in Nashville dropped, but Lucas texted me that Bob wanted to say Mike Vrabel is good, but John Robinson has got to go. That's an interesting listen, we are all about the opinions here on Sports Talk Radio, right? This is a particularly opinion-driven show, but John does get a lot of smoke that way. And I don't know if it's just prisoner of the moment, like the last two draft classes haven't panned out the way that people have expected them to. You don't get immediate impact from your first-round picks. In the one first-round pick in 2020, just respectfully, an outright bum who's unemployed now. It would have been his second year in the league this year, and he coasted on the Giants practice squad, Isaiah Wilson, and was reportedly falling asleep in meetings. They had to let him go, even as a practice squad player, because the guy just couldn't keep it together, even on his third opportunity in year two in the NFL, because they traded him to the Dolphins. Honestly, John Robinson should have a lifetime contract for getting draft capital for Isaiah Wilson. Even if he selected him in the first round, to get, even if it's a seventh-round pick from the Miami Dolphins, to do that, to get transactions, to get rid of Jurrell Casey at the time when it was appropriate to get rid of Jurrell Casey, to trade for Ryan Tannehill and completely save the franchise's fortunes when they were absolutely getting ready to crater with Marcus Mariota, to get Derrick Henry as a part of that trade when you had the first overall pick, even if Kevin Dodd and Austin Johnson and guys of that nature didn't pan out. There's a lot of different elements of this thing where you go around and say, John Robinson has helped rebuild this thing from the ground up. So the idea that John would be the weak link in this relationship, I think, is a flawed way of thinking. I'm not saying that the guy's perfect. I'm not saying that there won't be more draft misses to come, but the idea that John Robinson should be, out the door after he's been, they've had 6 consecutive winning seasons. In what world? It's an interesting, and this is good, right? I think that sports fans should have a sense of entitlement. Even if, I think that you should behave in a way relative to expectations for your franchise. You should hold these people to a higher standard. But I think there needs to be discernment between holding them to a higher standard while also appreciating the depths that they've helped pull you out of. There's no disputing that. 615-737-1045 is the number. Now, in saying that John Robinson should have a lifetime contract for getting rid of Isaiah Wilson for draft capital, it should also be noted that John Robinson did give up a first-round pick on Isaiah Wilson. So let's not be too prisoner of the moment. We got Colton in Nashville who wants to chime in on this Wednesday from Radio Row in L.A. What's up, Colton?
Yeah, nothing much, man. I install furniture for a living, don't have that great of an opinion, but Mr. Robertson and Vrabel, they're doing a decent job. I think that we need to try and figure out a replacement for Ryan Tannehill quicker than everybody else thinks. He threw a pick on the first play, and he threw a pick on the last play in a playoff game, and we grabbed him from the Dolphins where he wasn't doing too well at. I don't think we should be. I think we should be looking for a better quarterback situation and not going to the future of Ryan.
You know, this is the opinion of a lot of people. Noted NFL expert and analyst Kirby Allen Kirby is shaking his head in agreement with Colton. And you know, honestly, to Kirby's credit, he's been on this for a while. He's been on this. Ryan Tannehill isn't good enough for quite a while. No. Now he's arguing with me. You have a headset on. What do you want to say for yourself? Go ahead.
Well, in all fairness, I haven't ripped him.
You haven't ripped him, no.
No, he's done a great job here. He's way beyond what the original expectations were when we heard that they had signed him.
Yes. Lucas is saying we can't hear you, Kirby.
It sounds like Kirby's a million miles away.
Right.
I can hear him, but
what I'm saying is, based on what he had done in Miami,
yes,
there was an image.
Yes.
He got here, he blew that image away.
Yes.
Everybody was thrilled. You were carrying the water for him.
Still carrying the water for him, Kirby.
That we had at the mic right before the playoff game.
Before the Miami game as well.
I said, don't make the mistake. Well, the Miami thing, I was quoting their fan base when they were talking about they had a better quarterback.
Yes.
But I was telling you Burrow is the real deal, and you were scoffing at me.
I didn't scoff at you. I did not scoff at you, Kirby.
You set me to the corner. But anyway.
Well, I do that anyway. It's a matter of habit.
I'm not ripping Ryan.
Rip him, Kirby. Rip him.
But he is struggling at the moment, and a lot of that has to do with keeping the pressure off of him. It's an internal thing.
All right, back to the corner. Kirby Allen Kirby, ladies and gentlemen. He'll make another appearance, I'm certain, throughout the course of the next 3 days. You could hear Kirby is like encompassed in Radio Row. The whole crowd noise went away as soon as Kirby shut his microphone off. That's funny.
Hey, he has a point. You scoffed at me when I said Joe Burrow is an MVP caliber player.
He is. I mean, no, that is scoff-worthy. That is scoff-worthy. Don't be ridiculous.
So he's not an MVP caliber player. Joe Burrow is not a player that is of the caliber to win MVP at some point.
Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. You cannot give me that. Don't do prisoner of the moment, okay? Burrow's great. Great. Nobody is disputing that. The Bengals are just a franchise, just awash in utter ineptitude. And he has saved them. They won 4 games last year. Now they're in the Super Bowl. You cannot sit there and tell me, though, that Joe Burrow was an MVP candidate this season among the guys who were considered MVP.
That's not what I'm saying. That is not what Joe Burrow should not win MVP this season. He shouldn't be in the running. He is not a candidate. He is an MVP caliber player, meaning at some point during his career, he can win the MVP. He can do that, and I think he will do that. That's been my argument this whole time.
No. You're moving the goalposts. You're moving the goalposts. Get the hell out of here.
Never did I say Joe Burrow is the MVP this season.
Get the hell out of here. Speaking of get the hell out of here, Dawn Davenport and Brent Doherty have just shown up. I haven't seen Slay. Oh, there's Slay. All right, 3HL also broadcasting live here from Radio Row on 104.5 The Zone. Torrey Smith, former NFL wide receiver, expected to join us coming up next, and we will discuss a wide variety of things, given that Torrey won a Super Bowl with an interesting quarterback in Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco's Super Bowl MVP. So when we have these conversations around guys like Ryan Tannehill, I'd be interested to get Torrey Smith's perspective on both, given that he played in the AFC North for so many years, was able to win a Super Bowl with the Ravens, and do it with less than an ideal quarterback situation. 615-737-1045. More of your phone calls as well. Hour number 2 on the way, live here from Los Angeles on Radio Row. It's 104.5 The Zone. Hour number 2, live from Radio Row here on 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to L.A., where we're hanging out the site of Super Bowl 56. We told you we're going to have a lot of great guests throughout the course this week. We are joined now by former NFL wide receiver Torrey Smith, who sits down at the table with us. Torrey, it's good to catch up with you, boss man.
Nice to appreciate y'all having me.
Yeah, no doubt. So there's a lot of hate between the Titans and the Ravens.
Yes.
This is a long stand. I know you weren't just a Raven, but like this is going to create some tension here with the audience. You want to poke Titans fans a little bit? You want to give them a little hell?
I'm always willing to poke the bear a little bit. You know, it's a rivalry that obviously existed long before I was even drafted, and I didn't even really understand it because we didn't really play that much during my time in Baltimore. But like being a young fan, and watching Ray Lewis and just that defense going against the Titans, I mean, it was something that I remember just as a kid.
Yeah.
But now, you know, over the past few years, it's
been
a little something sprinkled on that, and you know, I'm all for great rivalries. Funny thing is, I actually met Coach Vrabel. I've seen him a bunch of times, but like I was at the Pro Bowl last week.
Yeah.
And so I had the opportunity to talk to him. He's a damn good man. You know, I didn't expect anything less than that. You know, people sometimes confuse like a coach and their attitude. Like he was awesome with my kids. Like so, if y'all had the opportunity to tell him that, tell him I love him. I have a lot of respect for him. He's a damn good coach too. They have a great team down there, but a rivalry is only as good as the teams are.
Yeah.
And so
that's true.
both of these teams are really good right now, and I think it's fun for the fans.
Yeah, Mike Vrabel, he's an interesting cat. He actually just got a contract extension yesterday, so he's here in Tennessee to stay for quite some time. You've played in this game before, Torrey, a Super Bowl. You won a Super Bowl with the Baltimore Ravens, 2 Super Bowls. Now, wait, where are the rings?
I left them at home, man. I swear.
No.
I never wear them, and the only time you're supposed to wear them is, like, you know, special dinners, banquets, and the Super Bowl. And I left my rings at home. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, this is the time, and that's like
Vrabel. Vrabel's got 3 of them. I'm pretty sure he said his home got broken into and they just got stolen.
Really?
Like Mike doesn't even have the Super Bowl rings anyway. So where are they? Are they sitting in a case at the?
No, I know where they are.
Okay.
They just
didn't make the trip.
They just didn't make the trip. I wasn't, to be completely honest about my packing experience. I waited until the morning of. That's the honest truth.
Hey, you know what?
So I was trying to make my flight. I didn't even think about those rings.
Yo, I think that most people can identify that without question. But you playing at the AFC North for as long as you did, like to see the Bengals in this game, man.
Oh man,
this seems like I don't know how that makes you feel a certain type of way because I know those rivalries run. Ramon Foster hosts our morning show here on the radio station, former Steeler, so he's got plenty to say about the Ravens and the Bengals. But to see them in this game, it's a completely foreign concept to me.
Yeah, you know, but I think it's great for the game. You know, you talk about. I mean, I know the rivalries, right? You get all of that. Even if the Steelers were there, as much as I hate the Steelers, I'm like, Joe Hayden's one of my best friends. So,
yeah.
You know, there's guys you want your guys to do well too, right? I'm able to look past that. But I think for this Bengals, I think it's great for the league. I say the Bengals are living every sorry team's dream. You get the number 1 pick, you get your quarterback, and next thing you know, you're in the Super Bowl. Like, it just doesn't happen. It literally hasn't happened. So I think it's great for the league, and it also gives fans hope. Puts a lot more pressure on whoever they pick.
Yeah.
However, it gives fans hope that it is possible. And I think when the underdog team, I think when a small market team like the Titans, right? Like, I think when they're doing well, I think it's great for everyone.
No, there's no question. 2-time Super Bowl champion Torrey Smith is here with us on 104.5 The Zone, live from Radio Row with Joe Burrow. Torrey, man, when you guys won the Super Bowl, the first one different than the second, obviously, because the second with the Eagles, I mean, that whole situation was crazy to see how that season played out. But quarterback play always being the driving factor of this. Joe, different from Nick Foles at the time. Burrow and Stafford, completely different breeds entirely in the way that the game has evolved. We're talking a lot about how important it is, the quarterback position here in Tennessee, because Tannehill, I mean, he blew it. He blew it against the Cincinnati Bengals. 3 interceptions in that divisional round en route for them to get here. I don't know how to tell Titans fans that they can legitimately win with Ryan Tannehill, but then I look at guys like Joe and Nick who have done it different ways and think that it's not – you need elite quarterback play, but it's just about at the right time can a professional athlete get hot. And I think Joe and Nick are great examples of that. What was it like to live those two experiences?
I mean, you're absolutely right. I think I tell people all the time, the best team doesn't always win, the hottest team wins. And that's why I wasn't so high on the Titans as the number 1 seed.
Okay.
Simply because they weren't playing their best ball, right? Like when they had stretches during the season, I'm like, oh yeah, this could be it, right?
Yeah.
But you have to be rolling at the back end. Everything has to be clicking on the back end, and I think if that's not the same, it's a lot harder. And you're able to see that. Obviously, the injury bug, hit the team. Like
91 players, man.
Right?
91 players.
The
this
injury
year.
bug. That's a real thing. I know coaches can't make excuses, but I can. That's a real that's a real thing,
Sure.
But when you're not rolling or you're not necessarily as healthy as you can be at the back end, it's tough. But I think living in two experiences, like literally where we got hot. Like, that's why those things were able to happen. Joe Flacco had the best Super Bowl run of any quarterback.
I remember
11
touchdowns, 0 picks.
0 picks.
Yeah.
So people can say whatever they want.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have won that Super Bowl without him playing that way.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side of that, with Foles, we were like when Carson went out, we didn't, like, guys were like, in the city, it's funny how things change when you win, but people were like, oh my goodness, we don't stand a chance.
Yeah.
And people forget Carson Wentz was one healthy game away from being the MVP. It's crazy how timing can change the narrative
Oh,
of
buddy,
everything.
I work in sports talk radio. It changes by hour.
Right.
Are you kidding
it
me?
changes everything. And so, for Foles to get hot and play the way he did, it's amazing because the Falcons game, Foles didn't play lights out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because we won the game. And so you get to the next level, and watch him take off. I mean, it was huge. And to be a part of both runs and really to witness it all come together, it was truly special.
Skill position. Torrey Smith is here with us on 104.5 The Zone, and we're going to tell you he's here on behalf of the Black Women's Health Imperative, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in just a second. But Jamar Chase at the wide receiver position, that was a conversation that was had a lot during the pre-draft process, right? Penei Sewell, Jamar Chase. They made the absolute right decision, even though Joe Burrow is running for his damn life back there.
Right.
Tennessee has a good collection of skill position players. Julio Jones isn't at the peak of his powers anymore, but I wonder what you make of A.J. Brown at the wide receiver position and how much, to us, Torrey, in Tennessee, it seemed like they hurt worse without A.J. than they did without Derrick Henry, who's an MVP candidate.
They did. A.J. Brown's a real deal, man. I love his game. I love his attitude. He's going to be a great one for a long time to come. I think the way he approaches the game, he's a dominant. He's a true number one guy. And then you add Julio. I wish Julio would have been healthy. I tell people all the time, Julio has the resume from his first 10 years to say he's the best receiver to ever play.
The Hall of Famer, without question.
Truly. And people are like, what do you mean by that? Go look at the numbers when he's healthy. There's no one statistically that has been better than Julio Jones when he's been on the field. Now, I know part of being on the field is a part of the thing. However, Julio overall, he's a heck of a player, man, and he's a great guy too. But I think for Brown, I think Tennessee really hit on him. I think he's the right guy for that market, for that team, for that culture, and he's a guy that you can build around. And you mentioned Derrick Henry. Obviously, Derrick Henry's not going to – receiver, he's going to be good at receiver for another 10 years.
Yeah.
At the running back position –
shelf life.
Things come to a halt quickly. So I think they're still in a true spot. I think Derrick Henry's still in a great place right now. But I think that core, they've done an amazing job from building this team from the inside out.
Torrey Smith is here with us on behalf of the Black Women's Health Imperative. Torrey, tell us what you are here to promote and why this is such an important cause to you.
Yeah, you're promoting the Black Women's Health Imperative. It's extremely important to me because the first and only nonprofit that's focused on the health and wellness of African-American women. Obviously, being an African-American male, I was raised by my mother and my grandmother. And my grandmother actually is the primary reason for why I was so involved with this. They really promote screening. They want to get 1 million people screened during the football season. And a lot of people don't get screenings, especially in the African-American community. My grandmother just rung her bell, finished up her cancer treatment last week.
Congratulations, man. That's fantastic.
Due to early detection, she was able to really fight it. Now we'll see how the test results look in a few months, but things are looking really good right now. And obviously this is focused on African-American women, but really everyone needs to get screened.
Absolutely.
All women, men too, right? Because we all tend to wait until it's too late. And the reality of it is, the way technology is, there are a lot of things that can be detected if we simply get screened. So it's really just to promote that, continue to get screened, and you can learn more at bwhi.org. .org, or you can just type it in Black Women's Health Initiative Imperative, and you can learn all the information that you need.
Torrey, I really appreciate you sitting down with us, and enjoy Super Bowl week. Enjoy the Radio Row. This is my first time out here. This seems more subdued than I was expecting it to
be. Wait. It's gonna get cooking here soon now.
Okay.
It's going to get cooking here soon. It's going to be a lot of players. For me, my one of my favorite memories by being on the other side of the fence was Radio Row. Like, I'm walking, and I see, like, some of my idols, you know.
Yeah.
I saw Barry Sanders. I'm like, oh, my God, it's Barry Sanders. You know what I mean? Like, really, like, a fan. Like, it's crazy the guys coming through.
I mean, not to be lame, but this is kind of one of those experiences for me because I was a freshman in college watching you guys win the Super Bowl with the Ravens a couple of years ago. So this is been a really cool experience.
Everyone's around you, man. You look around. Pat McAfee's right there beside you doing a whole set.
Yeah,
you got Debo Samuel right here.
That's what I'm saying.
Justin Jefferson to be here in a second. I mean,
Pat's close enough to drop the bag for us. I think he's got that FanDuel set. It looks pretty good. I think he can share the love. Torrey, enjoy the week. We appreciate you sitting down.
Having me, man.
Bridget Condon of the NFL Network is going to join us coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Los Angeles, California. 615-737-1045. You can jump in if you like. But in the meantime, we got Bridget Condon of the NFL Network hanging out here with us. She's been covering the Bengals all week long, and I don't know how we should talk about this in a way that's not just going to deeply, deeply hurt Titans fans, Bridget.
I guess I just won't start by throwing out some McPherson knowledge or nicknames, Mac Money. I don't think Titans fans want to talk about him, but it's okay. I mean, if your team's not in it, they can root for the AFC team? No?
It's 0% chance.
Okay, fine.
0% chance. At Bridget Condon _ is where you can follow her on social media. Evan McPherson, though, the kicker, is a phenomenon. Like, he has been unbelievable throughout the course of this postseason. 52 and 54-yarders in Tennessee to knock them off, and he's done it in every playoff game that they've had.
Yeah, he's 12 for 12 this postseason. 2 game winners. He said this week in availability that he grew up watching Adam Vinatieri. He's 3 field goals away from breaking his record for most field goals made in a postseason, which is absolutely incredible. He said he watched him in those Patriot games, Super Bowl playoffs, and he's like, yeah, every little kid's dream is to kick a field goal in the Super Bowl. I don't know that it'll come down to that, but, maybe. But he is got this confidence that the Bengals just walk around with Joe Burrow maybe rubbing off on him a little. And his teammate, Uzama, said he's like a 7-year-old running around a playground. Just no care in the world. He's like a menace, just kicking field goals, doesn't even realize how big of an opportunity, how big of a moment he's in.
Now, you bring up C.J. Uzama, the tight end for the Bengals. It was pretty interesting after the fact. I think he was on Chris Collinsworth's podcast, and he was talking about the Titans, and they could tell, the Bengals could, or at least C.J. felt, that the Titans were scared of that Bengals team, and that started all manner of fires here in Tennessee throughout the course of the weeks that we've been talking about this. But this Bengals team, man, I don't know. You've been covering them at this point. You've been around them a great deal. The confidence that they have, I don't know if there's a way to quantify it, but it is palpable the way that they carry themselves.
Yeah, and it's just so interesting because we all on the outside are like they're the underdogs, right? But week in and week out,
they're the Bengals.
Yeah, it's the Bengals in the Super Bowl.
That's
we
what
were
I'm saying.
we were at the set of Friends yesterday doing some studio tour, and we were like, whoever told you life would be this way? The Bengals are in the Super Bowl, for crying out loud.
That is
but
incredible.
yeah,
how many times you use that line? Be honest with me.
now just once. Me and Adam Rank from NFL Network kind of made a parody of the whole song. It was like,
nice.
Will Joe be there for you? Willie? They were always stuck in second gear. But no, I think this team has risen to the occasion multiple times, and that's what all the guys say. They're like, we don't care what anyone else thinks. We think we're good. We've proven it, and it's something about the chemistry of that team. They're all playing for each other. You see this in professional sports primarily, less in college, where there's one star, right, and he just wants to be the best, and the egos take over locker rooms. But for the Bengals, for whatever reason, the practice squad guys, the starters, the backups, they're all getting along.
Yeah.
And there's no ego trying to take over, and I think it's worked for them.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Bridget Condon of the NFL Network here with us on 104.5 The Zone, talking Super Bowl 56 live from Radio Row. So you're like me. You're a first-timer out here in this thing.
This is my first time at any Super Bowl.
I've been to Super Bowls. This is my first time having a radio show and being on Radio Row.
No, it's absolutely wild. I remember being in North Carolina last year watching NFL Network's coverage of the Super Bowl thinking, wow, it looks like they're having so much fun. Wow, that's so cool. And now I'm a part of it. Like, it's surreal. It literally gives me chills to think about.
Have you had like a starstruck moment yet? Like, I know we're pretty early into this. Is there anybody of the level of celebrity that would make you take a step back and be like, oh, wow, that's huge? I'm in the
So you
same
clearly
rooms.
Didn't watch on Monday and see my interview with Danny Trejo.
Whoa!
No, I haven't seen anyone crazy yet. NFL Honors tomorrow night. I'm like doing some red carpet stuff, and I think that's where I'll probably be like, whoa, okay, it's happening.
That's going to be really cool. NFL Honors, you bring that up with Mike Vrabel and the season that they had, understanding that the regular season didn't end the way that they would have liked it to, or rather the postseason didn't end the way that it would have liked to. He's being discussed as one of the favorites for Coach of the Year. And, I don't know I don't know how excited he's going to be if he ends up winning that award tomorrow. But what has been your view of the Titans throughout the course of this season? ultimately ending in that loss to the Bengals and the job that Mike Vrabel did.
Yeah, I think he did an incredible job with that team, and they were kind of the hype all around, right? And kind of just fell off in the postseason. I don't know exactly what happened or what.
Oh, I can tell you exactly what happened. Three interceptions, Bridget.
But I mean, if a team is that stable, you're winning, the regular season, you get the number 1 seed, and what happened. I think it's a lot to build on, though, right? Now these guys have that year of experience. They have that chip on their shoulder. I think good things are coming for the Titans. Obviously, I'm on a Nashville radio show, so I'm going to say good things about the Titans.
You don't got. Listen, I say plenty of bad things about the Titans. You don't got to pander.
I don't know if I would pick Mike Vrabel as my coach of the year, but
okay.
Yeah.
Who would you pick?
I don't know. I'm biased right now because I've been covering Zach Taylor all week.
No, but I think that's interesting because I feel like a lot of people, didn't for the longest. I'm an NFL reporter, Bridget. I didn't know what Zach Taylor looked like for the longest time.
He moves in silence.
I did not. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
Lasagna.
But I think just hearing from the players and the culture that they have in that locker room, they all relate it back to Zach Taylor and what he did when he got there. And he also, that team, they wanted to bring on guys. There's only one player on the team who's ever played or been to a Super Bowl, but they wanted to bring on these guys from LSU, from Ohio State, from Alabama, from Clemson. They understand the pressure, and I think that's kind of overlooked of the kind of guys that they have been able to bring to that team. Even though they're young, they still have that mindset of, I can go into a big game and I'm not going to get blown away by the pressure.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk about how these two teams got here, right? Because you look at the Rams, they're pulling in everybody: Odell Beckham Jr., Von Miller, Aaron Donald, Matt Stafford. It's star power driven, and they've, we'll see what their future looks like, but they've clearly gone all in.
They've gone LA.
They've absolutely gone LA, and then. I had a couple callers bring up throughout the course of the week, well, these are two opposites in the way that the Rams are constructed and the way that the Bengals have built their team, but it's really just the offense that's been so draft-focused, whereas this defense has quite a few new starters that they've reconstructed through free agency to kind of put them over the top.
Yeah, I think it's just interesting. It was such a weird NFL season.
Yeah.
I think if you had said Rams-Bengals beginning of the season, everyone would have laughed. And I think anyone could, it kind of feels like March Madness almost. There's never a time in the NFL where it's there's a Cinderella story, there's an upset, right? Because there's just guys that are built bigger than other guys and guys that are trained better, and they just destroy them, right?
Yeah.
There's so many less upsets, I would say, usually than there has been this year.
Oh,
and so it's just so strange. But yeah, I think the Rams have such a veteran leadership going on with Aaron Donald. He's been in a Super Bowl. 10 of their players have been to a Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford, he has not played in a Super Bowl, but he's been around for 13 years. And so I think that veteran leadership, Andrew Whitworth, God, you gotta love a guy like him. You gotta be rooting for him.
Only because he's 40 years old and he's still playing offensive line. That sounds horrific to me.
If I'm 40 years old and still getting out of the bed, props to me. But he's playing O-line, that's crazy. And it's just a cool story too. Drafted by the Bengals, of course. And I think these two teams are different, but I don't know. Who are you picking? Are we talking picks?
We can do picks. I'm so loath to do score predictions because I don't think there's a bigger waste of breath in our industry. But every time I look at a team that the Bengals are playing, I think that the Bengals should lose. And every time that I think that they should lose, they find ways to win, whether it's Patrick Mahomes looking like Blaine Gabbert in the second half of the AFC Championship game, or the way that they've caused turnovers on each of their opponent's final possession from Vegas to Tennessee to Kansas City. It's hard for me to not look at the Bengals and be like, all right, they've made it this far, so what the hell do I know?
Yeah, I'm worried about their O-line, though, right? That's been the question mark all season. And then you go up against Von Miller, Aaron Donald. Then you got Jalen Ramsey covering, in the back. I don't know. Joe Burrow, most sacked quarterback in the NFL regular season, 51 times. Already hit 12 times in the postseason. How much more can he take? I know it is only one more game they got to get through, and they're going to work on him getting the ball out of his hands faster.
But this is a hell of a pass rush to
have
for your
and
last
Aaron
game.
Donald is playing with everything he got. Von Miller probably is, on his way out, on his way. So I think those guys are really going to give it their all. I don't know that they can sustain it. But again, like you said, I mean, they were down 21-10 to the Chiefs at halftime. Everyone already had probably Kansas City. I know.
I thought they were dead.
Yeah, literally. Everyone was like, yep, Kansas City going to another Super Bowl. And what happened?
No. Bridget Condon of the NFL Network is our guest here on 104.5 The Zone. So you've been covering the Bengals this week. What's one thing you learned about Joe Burrow that you didn't know or that surprised you in covering them leading up to this game?
Ooh, I mean, I think we all know about Joe being calm, cool, collective, right? I didn't know that when he was playing Pee Wee football, his coach said to him, hey, Joe, you want to be quarterback? And he was like, no, I want to be receiver or running back, because he didn't think that he would get the ball in his hands in Pee Wee, right?
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want to be the quarterback. I want to run the ball. And his coach was like, too bad, you're playing quarterback. And so that's how Joe Burrow became a quarterback.
Just forced into it.
It's not like he was sitting there at home like, yeah, I'm going to be the star of the team, I'm going to be the quarterback. But wow, what would a world look like if Joe Burrow was a wide receiver? He thinks he wouldn't have made the league.
I don't think he would have been in the Super Bowl. Respectfully to Joe, he seems to be a high caliber athlete, but I don't know if that's quite cutting it. Now you're based out of L.A., correct?
Yeah.
So what's it been like around the Rams? Because I mean, you can speak to this better than I can. I've got some friends that live out here, but L.A. doesn't necessarily scream pro football to me. And the way that they've kind of tried to rebuild this thing and reinvigorate interest, where you got all the star power in the NFC Championship game and the cameras flashing to Leonardo DiCaprio and all these different people who are there. What's kind of the environment been like around the Rams leading up to this?
Yeah, LA's kind of a weird place, right? You walk around, and I was actually just in the parking garage, and the guy was like, oh, where's the convention center? He's like, are you here for the Super Bowl? I'm like, are people not here for the Super Bowl? Like, in any other city, you would know that the Super Bowl is happening. LA is just another day. And I think that's been the challenge for the Rams, getting a fan base behind them, because there's the Lakers, there's the Dodgers, right? Like, and these events are more of like a show when you attend it, right? Less of like, I'm a diehard fan. But I think in order for the Rams to flip the page and get a big fan base, this is exactly what they want to do. This is what they need to do. Not only are they hosting the Super Bowl in LA, but the home team's playing.
Yeah.
So I think this can really turn the page if they're able to get a win in the Super Bowl. All these kids running around, I think that's where it's going to start, that next generation, because a lot of the older fans were kind of mad when they left, you know? And they're coming back around, but I think it's going to take some time, and definitely a win on Sunday will be a step in the right direction.
Are you picking the game?
Yeah, am I going to get in trouble? No, I don't know. Like,
listen, I'm asking you, all right?
Here's the thing. Like, when you cover the league, you become less of a fan of one specific team. Like, I really don't care who wins the game. I want a good game. If I, had to make a decision, I think it's the Rams' time, but I think we're going to see Joe Burrow and the Bengals in the Super Bowl for years on out. And he might surprise us all, and I'm not going to be shocked if they win. I just think with guys like Aaron Donald, like Von Miller, like Jalen Ramsey, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham, like the list goes on of playmakers that they have on that team.
Bridget Condon of the NFL Network has been hanging out with us here on 104.5 The Zone. You on TV today?
Yeah, I was on 4 a.m. to 8 a.m.
Oh, yeah, no, I
this
saw
is the
that.
end of my shift.
Oh, bless you.
I'm going home to take a nap.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you.
We'll be on tomorrow and Friday, same time, 4-8 Pacific, so 7-11 Eastern. I hate that.
We're
I hate
Central Time, too. It's miserable.
Oh, God, I hate having to do math. I'm like, wait, I don't know.
Listen, I almost didn't make my call time because I'm used to 10 a.m. Central Time. It's 2 hours earlier here. It was pretty touch and go there for a second. Bridget, I appreciate you stopping by, and thanks for being on the show again. It's been a lot of fun to have you.
Thanks so much for having me, and have fun the rest of the week.
Yeah, 615-737-1045. You can jump in on the conversation here live from Radio Row. I mean, it seems like there's mixed opinions at this point about the Super Bowl situation between the Bengals and the Rams. You understand how these two teams are constructed and how they've gone about getting to this point, and the star power, obviously, but the quarterbacks being the most important piece of the puzzle. In fact, I was reading Kevin Clark from The Ringer earlier today, and in fact, I saw Kevin wandering around Radio Row. We'll see if we can't snag him at some point, talking about the Bengals with the smallest scouting staff in the NFL, and the way that they have tried to find value in these draft picks and pull things together, that it really is improbable for them having to get to this point. I don't know how to feel about the game itself, because like we talked about with Bridget, there are just so many elements of this thing where you break it down and you say the Bengals have no business being in this football game. I want to know who you're picking, 615-737-1045. Or rather, if you're not straight up picking, because, I hate game picks and score predictions just as a matter of principle. But who are you betting at this point, I think, is the more important question. 615-737-1045 in Super Bowl 56. We're live from Radio Row, by the way. All of our fantastic interviews, Torrey Smith, Bridget Condon, everybody that we're going to have throughout the course of the week, they are made possible, as is our Radio Row coverage for both 3HL and me, made possible by Two Rivers Ford, A Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa, and Ferguson HVAC. You can tune in every day as 3HL and we're broadcasting live here from Los Angeles. So many great guests and exclusive interviews that you will not get anywhere else. Ferguson HVAC, quality products, exceptional service. Two Rivers Ford, powered by Ford, driven by people. A Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa, Nashville's only full-service salon, day spa, and gift boutique located in Cool Springs. Rick in Columbia is up next on 104.5 The Zone. Hello, Rick. What's up?
Hello, Buck. First of all, thoroughly enjoy your show, man. Listen to it daily.
Thank you much.
You're welcome. Now, I thought I heard you say earlier in your interview that there's a zero chance that any Titans fan will pull for the Bengals. Well, here's one that will, okay. And I am a Titans fan. I'm thoroughly disappointed when they lost, all that other stuff. But let me tell you something, man. I've been a Joe Burrow fan since that record-setting senior year at LSU. I just really enjoyed watching that guy play football. And, yes, sir, I'm pulling for the Bengals, not just casually, but adamantly pulling for them. And, Joe Burrow, when I think of him, I think of Joe Montana in the sense that the way Joe Montana, he was always that money player, man. When the game was on the line, he produced, and I look at old Joe Burrow that way. Your thoughts?
I appreciate the call, Rick. 615-737-1045. You can jump in if you like. And I did feel like there was a 0% chance that there would be Titans fans in our audience who were rooting for Cincinnati, given the way that the Bengals broke the Titans' hearts in Nashville not so long ago. But, I love Joe Burrow as a player. I love him as a storyline. I love the trajectory that he's been on, where you see him as just this guy. It's funny to look at an NFL starting quarterback. He was the first overall pick and say, that guy has really overcome adversity, really overcome the odds. But in the case of Joe Burrow, I read an interview, or I saw his sit-down interview with Jeff Darlington of ESPN, and he was talking about, just for once in my career, throughout college, throughout high school, to be able to make mistakes in practice and not have it just be a death sentence because you've got J.T. Barrett breathing down your neck, which seems ridiculous to say in retrospect, or Justin Fields was on that Ohio State roster with so much good quarterback talent that OSU has consistently been able to recruit and sign. For Joe Burrow to come out and say, just to be able to make a mistake and know that this is still my job because I've earned it, because I've been able to deliver, because time and time again I have shown them that I can be a starting NFL caliber quarterback and now lead a loser franchise to a Super Bowl. The Joe Burrow story is tremendous. And I there's a part of me that looks at Matt Stafford coming from the Lions and says there's a lot of similarities. This is only like the second or third time when two first overall picks have squared off in a Super Bowl, and they've both had to come here or get here through non-conventional routes. It's going to be a fascinating game, fascinating storylines, and we're going to continue to talk about it all week long here on Radio Row. We're going to have more guests on the horizon, so stick around. But coming up next, we got the dumbest thing in sports this week. Just because we're in L.A. doesn't mean that Lucas and I are prepared to interrupt our weekly tradition. So if you want to jump in, you know the number, 615-737-1045. We'll tell you what the dumbest thing in sports this week is coming up next.
You've got a job to do, and we're here to make sure you get it done right. When you work with Ferguson HVAC, we'll make sure you get the equipment, parts, and supplies you need quickly. That way you can get in, get stocked, and get back to the work that really matters.
with you. 3HL is in the building. Ron Slay, Brent Doherty, Dawn Davenport, they just rolled in. They're going to be broadcasting live here from 3 to 6 for the next 3 days. But in the meantime, listen, Super Bowl's a big deal. We're out here to talk about the big game. We're going to talk Titans as well. We've been discussing John Robinson and Mike Vrabel's extension, how close they are legitimately to playing in this game this week, and what this staff, this administration, for lack of a better term, of the Tennessee Titans, how far away are they from participating in a game like this? Like, what's it going to take to get them over the top? But just because we are out here and just because this is a special occasion does not mean that we can interrupt tradition, because it's time for the dumbest thing in sports this week.
Let's be honest. You've already seen something this week that made you say,
"What the is this?"
That's bullshit.
What the hell? Give me some more now.
Something so mind-numbingly idiotic that you just want to get it off your chest.
Dumber than a second coat of paint.
Some idiot.
You are really dumb. For real.
It's the dumbest thing in sports this week on the Buck Reising Show.
Hell yeah, it is. Give it to me. 615-737-1045. That's the number. 615-737-1045. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? Lucas Panzica and I, we have our own nominees, and if you don't mind, Lucas, I'll go ahead and start the bidding out here on Radio Row. Let me tell you, so in the offseason, there was two monumental moves. In the offseason of college football, there was two earth-shattering moves that kind of started this crazy news cycle of what has been happening in the world of college football. The two things that I'm talking about is Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame to go to LSU as the head coach, and Lincoln Riley leaving the Oklahoma job to become the head coach of the University of Southern California Trojans. In fact, Lincoln Riley's wandering around Radio Row out here. Now, Lincoln Riley is not going to be my dumbest thing in sports this week, but the news story surrounding him right now is he has been defending his usage of the transfer portal because, as you well know, there has been a fair amount of talent that was previously committed to Oklahoma, that has signed by Oklahoma, for example, quarterback Caleb Williams, among other players, and they have now, through the transfer portal, become USC Trojans. Now, Lincoln Riley is up there. In fact, he was on Colin Cowherd yesterday saying that we didn't take players from Oklahoma. We took players from the transfer portal. Lincoln Riley is having to defend himself to, the unnamed Twitter masses who are on his neck about this thing, because all of a sudden Oklahoma fans are pissy and miserable because their great head coach left them to go be, the famous coach of the USC Trojans, and he's taking all of the players that he and his staff recruited to USC with him, because that's the whole purpose of the transfer portal and the one-time transfer rule, especially with this NIL situation that is going to create more revenue opportunities in a city like LA than there would be in a city like Norman, Oklahoma. The dumbest thing in sports this week is Lincoln Riley feeling the need that he has to defend himself, saying that he didn't take players from Oklahoma, he took players from the transfer portal. I don't care where Lincoln Riley gets his players. It doesn't matter. Football fans, to a certain extent, Oklahoma fans, though they may be salty, they have to understand that this is the nature of the game right now. This is how college football is going to be for the remainder of time. And until such time as the rules change and we exist in this current transfer portal, NIL, college football environment, then you better understand that you're going to lose some of your players when your coach decides to pick up and move too. That's the purpose of this thing, to give the college football players the ability and the freedom that the coaches have so often when they pick up and just straight up leave jobs too. Lincoln Riley having to defend any of this is the dumbest thing in sports this week, as far as I'm concerned. Lucas, what you got?
My dumbest thing in sports this week is Auburn University's Board of Trustees. Now, this is not to do with the situation surrounding Brian Harsin, which we have covered extensively this week, who, by the way, is back from vacation today.
Oh, good.
And will be at a meeting in Birmingham with SEC head coaches tomorrow. Be interesting to see how that shakes out. But no, my dumbest thing in sports this week is the Auburn Board of Trustees, because they have elected to, in the midst of a fantastic men's basketball season, where Auburn was the number one team in the country until last night. They won't be come the next AP poll after losing to Arkansas. But in one of the best seasons in Auburn basketball history, they have elected mid-season to change the name of Auburn Arena, where the men's and women's basketball teams play. It will now be known as Neville Arena in recognition of the single largest gift in Auburn athletics history. This was approved on Friday. Neville Arena opened in 2010, a capacity of 9,000 people. It'll be named after Bill and Connie Neville, members of the Pat Dye Society, Tigers Unlimited's highest level of giving. So not only in the midst of a college basketball season where Auburn until last night was 10-0 in the SEC.
That's right.
And Auburn Arena was starting to be recognized as one of the best environments in college basketball. So not only do you change the name in the midst of a college basketball season, but you do it in the middle of everything surrounded Brian Harsin, where right now boosters of Auburn University are not held in the highest regard by fans of Auburn and by people in media in college football, constantly butting heads and having no idea which way they want to turn when it comes to a head coach. It's okay to have an arena named after a booster. Thompson Bowling Arena in Knoxville is partially named after B. Ray Thompson, a significant donor to Tennessee in the 70s and 80s. But tone deafness. Read the room, Auburn. Right now is not the time to honor one of your biggest boosters when the biggest sport at your school is under complete fire right now. It is a complete dumpster fire because of the indecision among your highest level boosters.
And so continues. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and so continues Lucas Panzica's obsession with the Auburn situation, that we are going on a full week of this now. You have not every day that we have done shows since Friday, since Brian Harsin came under fire, you have been banging the drum about the stupidity of Auburn as a university.
Yes, and I will not let it go until this is figured out, because it is dysfunction at its highest right now in this portion of the SEC offseason. Auburn's Board of Trustees is my dumbest thing in sports this week for approving that name change mid-season and right when Auburn is in all the news in college football for the wrong reasons, having to do with their boosters, who they just named their basketball arena after.
Chef's kiss. The irony is not lost on any of us. 615-737-1045. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? Well, we got a break in the guest action. We got Chris, who's up first on 1045 The Zone with his dumbest thing in sports this week. Hello, Chris.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I got to say, one of the dumbest things in sports is I got to right at myself. I was excited to watch the Pro Bowl.
Oh.
And then when I turned it on and watched them play patty cake on the field, it was very disappointing. So anybody who's excited about watching the Pro Bowl, we're the dumbest things in sports. Thank you.
We did a little bit of this on Monday, right? Where I was making fun of Deion Sanders because Deion Sanders is out there outraged that the Pro Bowl doesn't look like an actual football game. And never in my life, never in 28 years of life has the Pro Bowl looked like an actual football game. Now, maybe at some point things were different, and I know that we, in particular, our show has an issue with age biases, right? In just the context of how long Lucas and I have been alive or how long Lucas and I have not been alive, for lack of a better term. But I think that, anybody who's still getting bent out of shape out of the Pro Bowl, I did it too. I turned it on. It took every ounce of restraint I had not to live tweet the Titans players making plays in a Pro Bowl because Kevin Byard got that interception. I was just like, oh, Kevin Byard, interception in the Pro Bowl. I put it on Twitter, and then I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me? Put the needle down, you addict. Stop it. Take the Sunday off. Go for a walk. It's a beautiful day outside. Just so terrible.
I almost made myself the loser of the weekend for how much of the Pro Bowl I actually watched.
I mean, it's sick. It's an addiction. This is why football always wins. This is the funny part about Radio Row. There is thousands of media members who are here, and this is this is my first time. Allegedly, it's a smaller Radio Row than ever before because of the the virus and everything like that. But the vast majority of people come out to Radio Row and don't go to the Super Bowl. We're literally just out here to hype up a game for a week and then not go to the Super Bowl. That's why football always wins. Tommy is up next with the dumbest thing in sports. Hello, Tommy.
Hello, thanks for having me. The biggest joke of the week was Olympic short track speed skating. It turned out to be down to one person would make the call on who the winner was because everybody on the track was acting like that they were getting hit by the person behind them. And the Chinese, of course, had more participants in the race than anybody else. So it was I guess the smartest thing in sports because the Chinese got the majority of the medals because they had more participants make the finals. It was an absolute joke to let one guy make the decision on who the winner of the race was because so many people had violations during the race.
Thanks so much for the call, Tommy. I appreciate it. 615-737-1045. Lucas, have you watched any Olympics yet?
Not as much as I thought I would. It's just kind of been on in the background a little bit.
Will Bowling just threw his hands up in disgust because I haven't watched a second of the Olympics. I haven't. The only thing I've seen of the Olympics is that ridiculous, ski jump event. I don't even know what the proper word is with the 2 nuclear reactors sitting behind it because they're just doing it at a power plant in China.
It's
is it crazy? Wait, what is that?
They're in the middle of a defunct Chinese steel mill.
It's like it's like a nuclear power plant that they're hosting the ski jump at in the Olympics.
A Call of Duty place.
We're not in Beijing. We're in Springfield, like the Simpsons. What are we doing here? 615-737-1045. When we come back, I'm going to give you one matchup to watch. One matchup that I think is going to decide this entire Super Bowl. In fact, I'm not smart enough to give it to you, so we're going to let Greg Cosell of NFL Films do it for you. Coming up next.
Coming up today.
Go.
Hour number 3? Is it already hour number 3? What the hell happened? We're live from Radio Row here in Los Angeles. I'm disoriented. This has been a lot of fun. Our first time, or at least my first time out here hobnobbing amongst, the A-listers as a notably F-list local sports talk radio personality. But we're happy to have you guys out here in L.A. with us, and we'd be more than happy to have your participation on the phone line. 615-737-1045. That's the number, 615-737-1045. You can jump in on the action if you so choose. We've been talking a lot about John Robinson and Mike Vrabel's extensions yesterday. When we look at the situation for the Titans and how far they've come and how they've been dragged out of the basement at this point by these two individuals and their staffs working hard to revitalize this NFL franchise that was, down bad for a long, long time after having some really, really proud history, not just as the Titans, but as the Oilers, and needing to really reestablish themselves in Nashville. They've done that under these two guys. We'll get back to that conversation, that portion of the conversation, here in just a second. But I want to talk about Super Bowl 56 in the meantime with everything that's happening right now. Because I've thought a lot about this game. I have no choice. It's the only game to think about. I'm not working. I'm working here, but, I'm going to go to some press conferences. I'm going to do some Zoom calls this week, and I'm going to act like I'm covering a Super Bowl. But in reality, this is a different kind of a situation for me. But I've been trying to figure out how best to analyze and break this stuff down for you. And it'll be surprising to nobody to find out that I'm not smart enough to do that. So we outsource the analysis because I've tried so hard to figure out exactly what is going to determine who wins and who loses between the Bengals and the Rams out here in Los Angeles come Super Bowl Sunday. And the more that I've spent time talking about this, and we did an episode of The Install, the podcast with Greg Cosell that we do every week, did it yesterday because Greg is flying out to L.A. today. I was flying out to L.A. with 3HL last night. We wanted to make sure we got a Super Bowl pod in, so we did it yesterday. And I asked Greg, what's going to be the deciding factor in who loses or wins this game? And Greg Cosell of NFL Films broke it down as only Greg can.
No team has a strength in every position and in every unit.
That's my timeline.
There's no team like that. So the last thing you want to do if you're the Bengals is walk out of SoFi Stadium and say, God, we lost that game because of our offensive line.
Yeah.
That's the last thing they want to say. So the question becomes, how do they deal with that going in? And there's multiple ways to deal with it. Obviously, you'd love to be able to line up and run the ball with meaningful production, which then increases the volume with which you can run the ball. Yeah. Number two, it's the kind of runs. You'd like to be in a situation where the run game forces the defensive line to move laterally to defend the run, because then that can set up the play-action pass game off those same run looks. Because what does that do? It means that when you show that same run look, and it's predominantly outside zone, is the defensive line takes a step and a half laterally, which means they're not going vertically attacking the quarterback. So it theoretically gives Burrow more time to throw. People may remember in the AFC Championship game, the first play of the third quarter was a 44-yard pass to T. Higgins. And I'm sensing you remember it because I could see it by the look on your face. And they came out on the first play, obviously 1st and 10, 2 tight ends. They went 7-man pass protection. It was essentially a 2-man route, and they hit Higgins for a 44-yard gain against cover 4, which is a coverage that the Rams play. So the way to deal with it, too, with maximum protection.
That's Greg Cosell of NFL Films there with us yesterday on The Install. You can check out the podcast wherever it is you get your podcast in the 104.5 The Zone podcast feed. It's called The Install with Greg Cosell of NFL Films and myself. So, with that being said, the Bengals, we know this has been their deficiency all year long. We know that the Titans absolutely wrecked them in the divisional round. Absolutely massacred that Bengals offensive line. I don't care how good Quentin Spain thinks he is on social media, right? We got the social media all-pros in Quentin Spain and Eli Apple, whose ability to chirp at people is not on the same level as it is with their playing abilities on the field. We've seen this throughout the course of the postseason, and yet they continue to kind of stoke fires out there regularly. When you boil it down to its simple factor, it's that they have not been able to adequately protect Joe Burrow, and yet Joe Burrow has been able to make plays. He had over 300 yards passing against the Titans while still getting sacked, what should have counted for 11 total had there not been one wiped off due to penalty and one wiped off due to a late whistle. There is so much there that can be taken advantage of, and it seems like teams have just straight up, from the Raiders to the Titans to the Chiefs, all three of these teams that Cincinnati has had to go to, they've botched it. And now the Bengals, and all credit in the world to them because they found ways to create turnovers. They found ways to create offense despite their quarterback being under duress. Their passing defense hasn't been overwhelmingly great throughout the course of the season, and yet all of a sudden you got Pat Mahomes, as I mentioned earlier, looking like Blaine Gabbert in the second half of an AFC championship game at home. Like, let's be serious about this. So what's going to determine whether the Bengals win or whether the Rams do? I think it very, very much boils down to the matchup between this fantastic Rams defense, one that is built to rush the passer, and how they are going to tee off on the likes of Isaiah Prince and Quentin Spain and the rest of this they're the Bungles offensive line. They're not the Bengals offensive line. These guys don't deserve to be in the Super Bowl as a unit for as poorly as they've protected their A1 asset, which is Joe Burrow. That's what this matchup is going to come down to, and we'll have plenty more time to discuss the matchup in great detail. A lot of good stuff coming next as well, and we're going to get back into the discussion about how far away the Titans are from making this game and what I think is holding them back from being legitimate Super Bowl contenders. That's coming up next. Your phone calls on that subject as well, 615-737-1045. You can jump in if you like here on 1045 The Zone, live from Radio Row. I'm telling you, this is the fastest show that we've ever done. Radio Row is unreal for the amount of people that are just strolling around. Warren Moon, who is going to be on 3HL today as a part of all of the great exclusive interviews that you can hear right here on 104.5 The Zone. Debo Samuel's out here slinging product. I know Derrick Henry's going to be out here at some point in the next 3 days, so we'll see if we can't try and coerce the king into doing a little local sports talk radio between his national appearances. I think it's going to be a tough task, but we'll see if it's a possibility. 615-737-1045. You can jump in on the conversation. The question that I've asked you, kind of going back to what we started the morning with, was what is keeping the Tennessee Titans from winning a Super Bowl? Because this is the genesis for the conversation, other than being out here at the Super Bowl and it not being the Titans participating, is the fact that John Robinson and Mike Vrabel, as the general manager and head coach, they both received multi-year extensions from the team yesterday. Again, the details are not out there. They are not required to make those public. All we have is a statement from Amy Adams Strunk as the controlling owner saying these guys are going to guide our football team for, quote, years to come. And in doing so, you know, we've talked about a lot of great football coaches, a lot of great quarterbacks. I mean, I think the most famous example of any of this is what? Dan Marino, for being one of the most prolific quarterbacks in NFL history and never having gotten a ring. Played in those games, but never able to achieve, never being able to get over the hump, and kind of juxtaposing that with somebody like Joe Flacco, who we spoke with Torrey Smith about earlier. Torrey Smith, who won Super Bowls with the Ravens and the Eagles, the Ravens with Joe Flacco, in which he put together an 11-0 touchdown to interception run throughout the course of the postseason. And then with the Eagles, you're talking about Nick Foles. You're talking about the backup quarterback going on not a perfect run, but one of the most improbable Super Bowl runs en route to winning the Super Bowl with lesser quarterback talent. So when this gets caught up in this conversation about Ryan Tannehill and, you know, he's not the answer, and trade for Aaron Rodgers, or go get Russell Wilson, or, you know, damn all the sexual assault allegations that are hovering over Deshaun Watson. That needs to be our guy because it's just an elite quarterback away. What, you know, even if Tannehill is not your ideal situation. And by the way, I don't know what grounds you have to stand on that based on the winning that you have done, other than the most recent performance, which is, of course, you know, kind of peeing your pants a little bit in a big spot. Nobody is disputing those things. But I think you need to be grounded in reality about what this team needs to get them over the top, because I don't think it boils down to just as simple an answer as they need a different quarterback. I don't think it boils down to just as simple an answer as Tim Kelly being added to the offensive coaching staff as the passing game coordinator. I think it helps. I think those things can go a long way. I think it's adding an additional resource that not every other NFL team is willing to invest in. There are moves that you can make, but ultimately there's no one delineating thing that can show you the true and obvious path to winning a Super Bowl. There are two things that matter more than anything else: quarterback play and the ability to get pressure with four. If you can pressure with four, drop 7 into coverage, you're already winning the numbers game right out the gate. In fact, a quarterback who has excelled when you don't have to send pressure. In fact, Matt Stafford in this game and throughout the course of the season, he's been one of the best quarterbacks against the blitz. Teams just stopped blitzing him because of what an inherent disadvantage it puts them in when you send an extra defender after the quarterback against this Rams passing offense. They have excelled. They have been so good. I mean, you look at the breakdown of the numbers, and I thought Sheil Kapadia and Ted Wynn of The Athletic did a really, really good deep dive on just where Matt Stafford has excelled. We've talked a lot about the turnovers, but we really haven't focused in on some of the unbelievable throws that he's made. Against man coverage, Matt Stafford is first among qualified quarterbacks. Against single high safety looks, Matt Stafford is first against qualified quarterbacks. Against the blitz this season, Matt Stafford is first among qualified quarterbacks as far as estimated points per play are concerned. This is something that when you look at the way that the quarterback efficiencies boil down to, you can put your players in advantageous positions. The Rams have done that, and still Matt Stafford almost lost the NFC Championship game on what would have been a soul-stealing interception. Maybe you can do this by varying degrees, right? With Ryan Tannehill throwing a pick on the first play of their game and on the last play of their offensive possession. Bookending it with picks. Terrible way to go about it. But think about how much different the conversation around Matt Stafford would be today if Jaquiski Tartt makes that interception that just straight up hit him in the chest. Like we've talked about Jimmy Garoppolo in this same context, right? You're always waiting for Jimmy Garoppolo to throw the death pick, the interception that's going to end them. Matt Stafford famously does this. He threw the death pick against the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. The difference is a dude dropped it. So when we go through all the different, dialogues and all the different scenarios and all the different ways that the Titans can get to the Super Bowl and how can the Titans win the Super Bowl and X, Y, and Z is keeping the Titans from winning a Super Bowl, I think all of that is largely crap. I really do. When you boil it down, it just comes down to those little wrinkles in the course of a 60-minute game. Did a player drop or catch an interception, a pass that was, without question, interceptable? That's the difference between Matt Stafford playing in a Super Bowl and not, and being, the thing that the Rams went all in on, one of the pieces that the Rams went all in on, in the way that I think a lot of Titans fans want John Robinson and Mike Vrabel to do. It is really an interesting conversation because I think people are such prisoners of the moment when it comes to this stuff, and it really ignores every other Super Bowl run that different teams have been on and how exactly they won that game. Not just because the win is associated with the quarterback. To do win-losses on a quarterback is just a wasted exercise because there's so many different things that go into it. Was Ryan Tannehill good enough in the AFC divisional round? Of course not. Was Ryan Tannehill, was that the only thing keeping the Tennessee Titans from the Super Bowl? I don't know how anybody could answer that question honestly today. Duncan is in Franklin up next on 104.5 The Zone. Hello, Duncan.
Hey there. I'm right there with you. I honestly think Tannehill is a darn good quarterback. We just need more passing options. He threw to not the number one, number two. It was a number 3 or 4, Akine.
Westbrook Akina. It was one of the most. And honestly, if you want to indict Tannehill on anything, A.J. Brown wide open, Anthony Ferguson running in the slot, and Ryan Tannehill tried to force a ball into triple coverage on that last interception to Nick Westbrook Akina. That was one of the most inexcusable mistakes that I thought Ryan Tannehill made. Duncan.
Right, for sure. And also, this was the first time that all of our starters were playing together since the regular season when we had all those injuries. I just feel like if we would have had Delaney Walker, an extra pass option would have possibly made a difference to where he would have a not stupid throw to throw. I think that's what it boils down to. He's a darn good quarterback. It's just if he had more passing options, I don't think he would have forced that pass.
I don't disagree with you outright, even though Delaney Walker is not the name that I would, respectfully to Delaney, who's been a great player over the course of his career. That's not who I would have cited as an upgrade, even though your tight end position was severely lacking, and that is one of the needs that must, M-U-S-T, be addressed either in free agency or in the NFL draft this year. The tight end position, the lack of just safety valve options, reliable safety valve options for Ryan Tannehill. There is a lot of truth to that. But also, you get into the conversation about, well, why wasn't Ryan Tannehill more comfortable throwing to his better options? Julio Jones, A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is one of the most egregious things about the way that the Titans passing game was constructed over the course of last season when A.J. Brown was available. Again, he was not always available. That's a big part of that conversation. But one of those things that drove me crazy is how little, when it comes to forcing plays that you think will work, but it's just your best playmakers. So this is the route that we're going to try to go. I thought the thing that the Titans did the most egregiously was they stuck with the run in those moments. And all respect in the world to Derrick Henry at a time when Derrick Henry was not at his peak. When you have seen success in games like against the San Francisco 49ers or against the Indianapolis Colts on the road. When you feed A.J. Brown as a part of a modern NFL passing offense, good things happen, especially when you take advantage of things like one-on-one coverage. If you've got one-on-one coverage with today's NFL wide receivers, whether it's somebody the size and stature of A.J., Justin Jefferson, C.D. Lamb, one of the biggest reasons the Cowboys choked that playoff game away, because they had single coverage on C.D. Lamb early and often, and Troy Aikman went on local Dallas radio and said, I don't know what the hell they're doing. Michael Irvin would have caught 20 passes if we'd have gotten him singled up on a corner like that, because those guys are just going to go up and make plays in a way that the rules make it advantageous for them to do. It drives you crazy. It drives you crazy, and then we just have this mind-numbing conversation. And listen, I'm a big part of it, right? Big part of the conversation. In fact, we collectively, Lucas and I and all of our shows, we're driving conversations around these local teams, particularly the Titans, coming throughout the course of this football season. And we have spent an inordinate amount of time on Ryan Tannehill, when in reality, it is not as simple as that. That's just the easier argument to make. That's why people gravitate towards it. Drives you nuts. Paul is in Murfreesboro up next on The Zone. What's up, Paul?
Hey, when you, I guess after the Titans got the bye, you asked the question, who do you not want to see? And the first thing that popped into my head, who's I didn't want them to have to play, was anybody that watched game films. Because it was painfully obvious that whoever it was going to be able to see through the offense, as well as them not being able to get hot like your previous guest had said. You know, they were still kind of messed up. But I think Tannehill has got what it takes to do the job, considering he was a converted receiver in the quarterback. He could probably use a little tuning up, and I think they're going in the right direction with the hires that they've made. And I think the best example of can you win with a quarterback his caliber, I would recommend that we look at Trent Dilfer after he left Tampa Bay and went on. And I'll hang up and listen.
Paul, thanks for the call. Do we think Paul is power walking, Lucas? Do you think he's on the treadmill? He sounded out of breath. I don't want to be rude. He sounded like he was exercising when he was on the phone with us. You know, get your steps in, Paul. We appreciate you. 615-737-1045. There are a million different examples of lesser-than quarterbacks who have made Super Bowls or won Super Bowls. Rex Grossman for the Bears against Peyton Manning was in a Super Bowl. Now, whether Rex Grossman was good enough to win a Super Bowl, I think we all saw the obvious answer to that question. It just gets boiled down to what the most amount of people can talk about. And what can the most amount of people talk about? Talk about 3 interceptions, right? Your box score scout, and you can pull up 3 picks. Oh, why did the Tennessee Titans lose the game? All right, let me pull up my box score on ESPN. Oh, Ryan Tannehill threw 3 interceptions. That's why they lost the football game. There is some truth in that, of course. Nobody is diminishing the turnover element of this situation that they find themselves in. But to kind of reset this conversation that we've been having, you know, I've been trying to diagnose since their season ended how many different ways could they have done this better. You know, Mike Vrabel accuses us of this all the time, of being professional second guessers. You know what, Mike, you're right. I pay my mortgage second guessing. Thank God for that. Thank the football gods for that. It's a ridiculous thing that people pay us money to do. But in looking for solutions, where are the obvious solutions? I keep looking for one singular thing to hone in on and be like, all right, you have the addition of the passing game coordinator. You have the obvious deficiencies with the creativity in the offense. If you listen to the Install podcast with Greg Cosell, Greg told you all season long that they weren't good enough as far as their diversity of their passing game. They did not have enough in their portfolio to really shock teams. You know what shocked people most about the Titans? Is that they kept winning football games without changing a damn thing. That they kept winning football games with running the ball with Deontay Foreman and Dontrell Hilliard as opposed to Derrick Henry. That they kept winning football games with Nick Westbrook-Akina and Chester Rogers at wide receiver instead of A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. that they kept finding ways to win football games, even though everybody in the world, you don't have to be that smart about football. You can watch 5 Titans games and understand what they have been for the better part of really 4 years since Matt LaFleur was here. They have fundamental running game concepts and play action passing concepts off of that. And there is not hardly any variation outside of the odd Derrick Henry's in the Wildcat. Ooh, watch out, he might throw a touchdown pass to the tight end. Like that's the wrinkle. And it's works, right? Let me not discount that. They've won games playing like that. But at a certain point, and I think to Mike Vrabel's credit, even if he will never, ever, ever in a million years in a press conference publicly acknowledge that they made a decision that is hindering their football team, which I think hiring and adding Tim Kelly as your passing game coordinator to a staff where Todd Downing is already the OC after you tried to hire Tim Kelly as the OC, and while he was on the Texans staff, that interview request got blocked. I think that willingness to adapt is the exact thing that you want to see. So if you're asking me what is keeping the Titans from winning a Super Bowl, I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's anything that is outright stopping them. Any one hindrance, not the quarterback, not the offensive coordinator, not, Jackrabbit Jenkins because he's wearing the wrong cleats and he slips in coverage and drives you crazy. Like, it's not one thing that's holding them down that way. To me, what it boils down to is how close are you? Do you have the parts to do this thing? The answer is yes. And if so, what limited you throughout the course of the season that you have the ability to adapt? If the answer is the passing game, look at that. Passing game coordinator, let's try and make this thing hum a little smoother. 615-737-1045. We welcome your participation here on 1045 The Zone, live from Radio Row. Scott is not here on Radio Row. He's in Hendersonville, and he wants to chime in on 1045 The Zone. Hello, Scott.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that this game was not a fluke. It was very similar to the game last year against Baltimore and that loss to the Bengals last year. Our stars have got to play like stars. Derrick Henry rushed for 40 yards against Baltimore last year. He rushed for 60 this year. We got nothing from the tight end position. Julio caught about 50 yards worth of passes at the wide receiver position. Our stars have got to step up and play like stars. The Bengals and the Rams have playmakers all over the field. We've got to do better. Thank you.
Thanks for the call, Scott. But that's and I don't want to be in reruns, right? But I kind of had this conversation like right after the game, where I'm sitting in the press conference, the post-game press conference, in the bowels of Nissan Stadium, after they blew it against the Bengals. And Ryan Tannehill, he's almost operating at a loss for words in how to kind of process that. But he manages to mumble out, well, we didn't make enough plays to win the game. And I'm sitting there screaming in my head, no, you dope, you did. You ripped that 40-yard pass to A.J. Brown for the touchdown. You got the Deontay Foreman big explosive run to set you up with first and goal from the 9. There were just opportunities that they blew it in those individual moments that said to me, no, you made enough plays to win that football game because the Bengals weren't doing that much. And all you did was give the game away in each of those 3 instances for one reason or another, whether it was a tip pass, whether it was a wrong read, whether it was, the decision for Ryan Tannehill to keep it on an option carry instead of just handing the ball to Derrick Henry on 4th and 1, like millions of different things, and yet it gets boiled down to the simplest, most exacerbating form of the conversation, which is Ryan Tannehill threw interceptions, trade for Aaron Rodgers. Ugh. Punch me in the face. I can't say that too loud. Kirby's going to take me up on it. We'll wrap up the show, do some polls, last call for phone calls on our first day here from Radio Row. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Got DraftKings.
from Radio Row, Super Bowl 56 here on 104.5 The Zone. Buck Reising here with you for another segment. It's 10:45 a.m. and I'm done working. I'm not done working. We've got some other stuff that I'm going to be roaming around the LA Convention Center, trying to find a couple of people to talk to and getting ready to do some Super Bowl 56 interviews as well, getting you ready for the big game here on The Zone. Last call for phone calls, if you got them, 615-737-1045. Before we do the polls, Lucas, we don't get too self-congratulatory as a show, but I saw that top 10 Barrett Sports Media thing, or top 20 Barrett Sports Media thing came out, and that we were number 9, which made me very happy. And so I just wanted to say great work by you, bud. We're 10 months into this thing, and we're making lists. We're on the lists. It makes me very happy. I despise lists unless it's rewarding us for doing good things. So good job out of you, Lucas.
Same to you. Our list debut as a show.
Yes. 10 months in, we're making the lists. I hate lists, but unless they tell me how good we're doing at our jobs.
And shout out to Blaine and Mickey coming in there as well.
Blaine and Mickey on the list in the top 20 as well. That's pretty good representation if you got 2 shows in the top 20. J. Martin Ramon also made their morning show top 20, and I'm quite certain.
I don't think I've seen the afternoon one come out yet.
Will Bowling is motioning to me 13 for J. Martin Ramon. So congratulations to them, and we will await with bated breath where 3HL pulls in, because I know they're going to do great things as well. All right, one more phone call for the day. David is in Hendersonville before we do some polls. Hello, David.
Hey, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Hey, I've been listening to the show. I'm not trying to be critical, and Ryan can I have to try to be biased, but you got to remember, he started off the game with an interception, and he basically ended the game with an interception. And as a quarterback, when you want to be the leader of the team, you cannot make those critical mistakes like that, and I think it just killed the team in the end. And also, Bill coming off that injury he had, you had 2 running backs that were doing the job, and I just think he was just a little messy. Maybe went with the other 2 running backs a little bit more during the game. And I appreciate you listening to me, and y'all doing a great job, and just keep up the good work.
Thanks for the call, David. Yeah, the interceptions are the glaring part of the conversation, right? Of course, that's going to be a tough. I'm trying to give people medicine when they don't want anything to do with it. And Kirby Allen Kirby accused me of carrying water for Ryan Tannehill, which is probably true to some degree. But I get frustrated with the whole conversation around quarterbacks. I just do. It just drives me insane, week in, week out, season in, season out. In the meantime, Lucas, let's do some polls.
No. I'm not going to let you keep doing this without playing the Nick Caserio audio from yesterday.
You're defying an order to play the poll question open.
There is no order. I'm the one at the controls here. We cannot go any further without playing the Nick Caserio audio during the press conference introducing Lovie Smith down in Houston.
Okay, so they're introducing Lovie Smith. He is the one of the last of the 2 hires, the Texans and the Saints, promoting internal candidates. Lovie Smith is being discussed by GM Nick Caserio, and what happens in the middle of this audio, Lucas? Shall we just play it for people and let it ride?
Let's let it ride.
All right, go ahead and give it to me.
Yeah, good question. I would say didn't affect us at all. I would say just speaking specific to Brian. So, I've known Brian a long time, personally and professionally. I have a lot of respect for Brian as a coach and a person. He was a part of this process. He's been a good coach in this league for a number of years. Part of my responsibility was to spend time with as many quality candidates as possible, and Brian was one of those. As it pertains to the individual lawsuit, I would say from the beginning of when we started our process, call it, January 14th to now, there was multiple conversations throughout the course of, I would say, the last few weeks with a number of different candidates, and that was pretty fluid. I think this process in and of itself is very fluid, and we have
stairwell.
Got a fire.
Further instructions.
But
do not use the elevators.
Don't use the elevators.
No, you're kidding.
I'll try to talk over the microphone. But anyways, this process is pretty fluid, right?
And all right, I don't need to hear the rest of it. Get it the hell out of here.
It's the fire alarm.
The fire alarm. He's talking about the Brian Flores Brian Flores is suing the league's ass for racism in their hiring processes. And not only does the fire alarm go off, you got the bull bleep alarm going off. Man, get the hell out of here.
As he's denying that the Flores lawsuit had anything to do with them not hiring Flores.
We hired the most qualified candidate. We did all the right things. Lovie Smith, this has been our guy the whole time. No, sound the fire alarm. Somebody on the...
Liar.
Somebody on the Texans staff probably pulled the lever and just be like, oh, man, get this guy the hell out of here. Give me some polls.
Not now, Jenny. I'm on the radio.
This one's so bad.
Buck Reising gave me a job. Said something about a poll update. Hope that wasn't at that club where you became a folk singer. Anyway, Buck Reising's producer and correspondent has the final poll update. I'm not a smart man, but I know who Lucas Panzica is.
All right, now from Forest to the club, quick.
This is more fitting of the City of Angels, isn't it? What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? I think Puka hits the nail on the head. People getting upset watching the Pro Bowl. It's been this way for years now. It's like going to a comedy and complaining it wasn't dramatic enough.
Yeah, no, the dumbest thing in sports is people making Lincoln Riley defend himself for pulling kids out of the transfer portal who were in Oklahoma and who went to Oklahoma to play for Lincoln Riley, and now Lincoln Riley is having to go on Colin Cowherd and say, we're not taking kids from Oklahoma, we're taking kids out of the transfer portal. He's recruiting the kids that he already recruited the first time around. He's just taking them out here to L.A. Much better in Los Angeles than it is in Norman, respectfully.
I have seen a lot of people submit the fact that Titans fans, a lot of them complaining about A.J. Brown hitting the batting cages here in Nashville, saying focus on football.
I won't do it.
I haven't seen any of that, but if that's true, that does qualify for the dumbest thing in sports.
I won't even engage in that conversation. If you are one of those people, and I do mean you people, do better with your time.
How many years till J-Rob and Vrabel win a Super Bowl? 1, 2, 3 plus, or never? 34% say 2, 22% 1, 18% 3 or more, 26% say never.
Yeah, it's really tough to get a grasp on that because, there's been plenty of qualified coaches, GMs, players, quarterbacks who have never won Super Bowls. But if you're talking about who's going to put you in the best position, that's definitely going to be John Robinson and Mike Vrabel for the future moving forward.
Most important matchup in the Super Bowl. Crazy Pellet says Matthew Stafford versus the biggest spotlight he's ever had in his life. Elizabeth says nachos versus wings.
Nachos versus wings is going to be a hotly contested Super Bowl debate without question. Lucas, I almost feel like we got to save the Jeff Fisher one for tomorrow. It's so good.
I would agree with you. Let's save that one for tomorrow. P. Gabe chimes in saying Cincinnati's O-line against the Rams' defensive front is the most important matchup.
Greg Cosell just told you that. That's going to be the case. Are those the polls?
Those are the polls.
All right, that's going to do it for us today, live from Radio Row. 3HL is going to be broadcasting here from 3 to 6 Central Time. They've got great guests. They got Warren Moon coming up. They're going to have all kinds of great people hanging out as well. We're back here tomorrow and Friday, getting you ready for Super Bowl 56. A lot of fun. Mike Golick Sr. is going to be here. Laura Oakman from Fox Sports. A lot more fun to have in Los Angeles. And in the meantime, Blaine and Mickey got you covered from back home. Coming up next.